I'm going to let you in on a secret weapon that's going to skyrocket your sales without the unnecessary headaches that come with using one of the big player CRM systems. And that secret weapon is Close CRM. Let's face it, we've all used a clunky, confusing CRM platform, the one that kind of makes you want to throw your laptop out the window. Well, Close is going to save you time, money, and sanity. Close has all the powerful tools you need to manage your leads, track your deals, and crush your targets. It has built-in calling, emailing, SMS, multi-channel sequences, and meeting tracking. It's super easy to implement, and it's built for your business. You can stop screwing around with CRMs that aren't built for you and start selling and managing your customers today. Use the link in the show notes and enter the promo code SSP15. That's SSP15 for 15% off your first 3 months. Go check them out. What's up, SaaS sales players? I'm here to introduce yet another amazing guest for today's episode. Joining me is James Urie. James is the Senior Partnerships Manager at Close. That may sound familiar to you. Close is a partner of the podcast. James shares his insights into the indie tech stack. So you'll hear more about what that means and what that includes. We talk about his background, how he transitioned from being an account executive into a partner leader. We talk about his favorite method for prospecting, which we'll get into in the conversation. And he shared all kinds of great insights. He's a super interesting guy. He's a podcaster. He lives in one of the best states in the union, which is Colorado. And there's a lot of great stuff that he shares during the episode today. So you'll want to listen to it all the way to the end. So with all of that said, welcome, James. James, so glad to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. Appreciate it, man.
How are things up? You mentioned in our last conversation, you're in is it a small town in Colorado? Whereabouts?
I am. I'm in Salida, Colorado, which is kind of hidden in southwest central Colorado. To give someone a compass, it's about 2.5 hours southwest of Denver.
Okay, southwest. That's a pretty area.
Yeah,
in Colorado. I keep hearing about new startups launching in like Boulder, Denver area, and it seems like a great state to do business in for sure.
It is. It does seem like, especially in Boulder, a new type of Silicon Valley vibe there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you from there originally, or did you?
Yeah. I grew up in Colorado, in a town called Pueblo, Colorado, so not too far from here. But yeah, born and raised, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. So a great starting point would be, my fans always like to hear how you got into the business. Tell us about how you landed in tech sales and the tech partnership world, how you got acquainted with some of these technologies, and maybe set the stage for the conversation today.
Yeah, I'll give it a super high level TLDR, man. Out of college, I was a teacher of all things, and I was a special education teacher, and I specialized in behavioral management. Okay. And I was working at what is called a treatment facility, where kids and youth with traumatic backgrounds, they live there, they receive therapy, and they go to school there. And as you can imagine, that is extremely challenging behaviors. You have to be a master at managing behavior to keep those kids safe or do anything productive, right? To help them. So I really, really honed my craft on managing different types of personalities, especially with traumatic backgrounds, stuff like that, right? I got really good at handling human beings. And even before teaching, I grew up in a mega church. My dad was a pastor there. So I was talking to a scope of personalities, from low socioeconomic status to the richest people in town. And so these are sort of the fundamentals and foundation that got me into sales, right? And my friends growing up were always like, you should be in sales. You should be in sales. Like I was always pitching something, right? It's like a baseball bat or a new kind of glove or whatever I was into at the time, the type of bike I was riding. I still do this thing. And my friends were always like, you should be in sales. You should be in sales. And I always took that as an offense. I was like, no. Like you just think of car salesman, right? And no offense, if you're in car sales, like that's great. Like that's, but you think of just like you're hustling people. And after I couldn't take teaching anymore, 4 years, is like, this is exhausting. I don't know how people make a career out of this. I said, no more. And my wife and I went and traveled South America and did some soul searching. Like, what am I good at? Like, what are my strengths? And came to the conclusion, I'm like, people, relationships, communication. Like these are my strengths. Now, what does that feed into on what I want to do next? And I came to the conclusion again. I was like, I think sales and then in especially in tech would be ideal. And at that point, I was still forecasting like I want to be remote as well at some point. I want to find a company that hires remote. This is 2015, and so I got this this tech sales job at a small VoIP company. Didn't pay very much at all, and just started, man.
How did you secure that first gig? What kind of things did you do to get that conversation started?
I think this was a post on Craigslist of all places. Like you come back from South America, just like, what am I going to do? I've given up my past career, and they were hiring for a sales rep, and I reached out, they interviewed me, got the job. The sacrifice was like pay, right? I mean, it was really low. Yeah. But I just did it, and it worked out, and it progressed from there. I ultimately secured a remote role with a tech company beyond that called Recruiter Box. And then we got to move out to the mountains.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's a theme that I've found with talking to a lot of reps who've been doing this and sales professionals who've been doing this for a long time is sometimes the first gig came about in a random way, like a Craigslist post.
Yep.
Like, in my case, I was just blasting applications out, and I was willing to just do anything to get in and just get the door. And then usually those jobs are, for lack of a better word, sweatshops, where 150 cold calls a day, and you're just working off of a spreadsheet or whatever it is. Or I think in some cases people were crossing names off of an actual pen and paper list. So
classic.
Yeah, that's cool to hear that that's how you broke in. And I think Craigslist might be one of those overlooked places for anyone out there who's looking for their next thing. Probably doesn't hurt to spend a little time just seeing if anybody happens to be posting on Craigslist, some kind of interesting opportunity, especially because it sounds like you got in relatively early, and that's shaped your career in early stage companies versus like going and working for a big fancy tech company out of the gates. And I'm imagining you've learned a lot working as, an early member of the team at a lot of these companies you've been with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Learned a ton. And I would say anybody like struggling with that, right? Taking a deep look at yourself and you're like, I am a great communicator. People are my strength. Like sales is a very good career to get into. And if you hadn't thought about that before, you should. And there's a lot of really interesting companies you can go and work for that is not just the sales hustle that is stigmatized, but can be a really awesome, enjoyable career because you enjoy people, you get energy from that, and you're good at that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is a hot topic that I think is on a lot of minds right now. It's definitely on my mind also. You're out in Salida, Colorado, remote work. And there's a lot of chatter in 2023, late 2023 at this point, about getting back into the office and companies moving operations internally. Do you feel like that trend will stay, or are you still seeing a lot of companies that are remote first, that are willing to hire people in, remote towns in Colorado, or in my case, Arizona? What's your take on that, and where do you think the industry is heading?
I think it's still to this day, you can make the assumption that everybody is open to remote, right? When you apply for a job, there's like no thought in the back of your mind where you're looking at location anymore. You're like, they're probably open to remote. And so I think that sort of speaks for itself. So I think the majority will be people being open to that. They might not prioritize that always, but I think they'll always be open to it for the right talent. I think that, especially smaller companies, startups, SMBs, I think it makes a lot of sense to be remote. It's still sustainable to create process, keep tight communication with those remote employees. And then you can also give them that life flexibility to really attract that high quality talent. Yeah. So I think there's going to be, I think 60% of companies will will always be open to remote. Maybe we'll have some offices here and there, and you're welcome to go in the office. And I think there will be like a 40% that were like, you know what? The way that our business works is we need people here and we need to collaborate in person. And I understand that too.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think my take on it is the big tech. Like if you want to go work for a FANG, count on being in a city where that FANG has massive operations, right?
Yes.
Working for a FANG company, And if you're not familiar with the FANG acronym, it's just the top 5. It's Facebook, Apple, Amazon,
Yep.
and Google. I don't know if those are still the top 5, but that's the acronym that they throw around to denote like the top tech companies, right? But I think to your point, smaller teams are going to use remote as a competitive advantage for a couple of reasons. Like Close can hire you and all of your talent, despite the fact that you might not be in the same geolocation as somebody else, but they're able to snag you because it doesn't matter. You don't need to come into the office. And I think the small teams are going to find that they can keep their operations costs really low while also hiring anyone they want to from a bunch of different skill sets and walks of life. And I think that's going to be a competitive advantage that could, disrupt the industry in a few years again. Right. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think for listeners out there, if your goal is like big tech, you want to go be the top dog at Oracle or Salesforce or something like that, I would imagine you probably need to be living in San Francisco, New York City, Austin, something like that. But for anyone who wants to be part of startups and smaller, more indie companies, and we're going to get more into that here in just a second, I think there's still a huge opportunity to live where you want to, whether that's in the mountains of Colorado or another country or something like that. I do still see a lot of opportunity there. So yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that. And I think it's again, something that's really top of mind for a lot of listeners.
It's a huge opportunity for a careers page too, to really highlight that remote first philosophy and what comes with that. And these companies on the small scale level will really prioritize autonomy, trust, like your impact and the work that you do is what we're looking at, not the amount of hours that you're working and the face time that you're putting in, right? It's easy to track impact, if you will, at the broadest term possible.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what the work you do at Close. And I was looking at your background. It looks like you started there on the sales team as an account executive, and you now oversee all the channel and partnership efforts for the business. Tell us a little bit about how you got started there, the transition, and then of course your current role there.
Absolutely. So I got started at Close in 2019. I really didn't even know what Close was until this guy named Steliefty started like hitting my threads all the time, and on YouTube, and I started seeing this guy everywhere. And I'm the type of non-adopter where I'm not really just going to click on a piece of content because I'm like, oh, I'm going to like learn something from this. I saw it enough where I'm like, this guy must have something to say. Watch one of his videos. And I was like, wow, this is actually really, really good. This is really usable, tangible, timeless advice for sales. And so I started watching more of his content. And Steli is our CEO, if you don't know. And that's, kind of how we really started our organic traffic engine, was with his content. And I got to the point where I went to the website, went to the careers page. I started looking at this time, the tech company that I was working at before got acquired. The culture was shifting. So I was looking, and they just had the only role open was an account executive at that time, and applied, and luckily got the role, man. And I was the only salesperson on the team at that time. They had 2 sales interns before that. They had left. I was the only person handling a very large top of funnel. So that was a lot. I was having a lot of conversations with a lot of people, a lot of founders, a lot of smaller businesses. And we were selling a sales CRM to salespeople, which required me to quickly become an expert on how to do sales. And they were looking for that type of advice in sales conversations. And naturally, I just started to really pick that up, forming my own opinions, taking opinions from Steli, and starting to evangelize not just our product, but here's an effective approach to do sales.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. So you did that role for a while, and then just saw a pathway into the partnership side of the business.
Yeah. When you have a very focused type of tool, or we're a CRM, right? But we're focused on salespeople. You tend to attract these types of agencies that service clients with your tool because it's so focused. I naturally started having noticed that I started having conversations with the same type of people, or the same exact person over and over again, but they're like, hey, I'm starting a new client account. I wasn't even thinking about partnerships this early, right? I was just like, oh, this is interesting. Like, this is a easy way to, bring in another high quality customer. And I'm just working with this person as the point of contact. Started having more of these conversations naturally and organically. to the point I'm like, we should probably have a partnerships team, because I was spending 50% of my time communicating with this one segment of human beings, supporting clients on our behalf. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. So I proposed to the team. They say, let's go 20% of your time on partnerships. Let's like put this together. 80% you're still on sales. We still need to hire people to kind of fill in what you do. And then we'll talk about going full time.
Yeah.
Then I actually left Close for a short period of time to go start my own land development business. Really quickly learned that I really did not enjoy being a business owner or like putting something together. Like I just decided that was not my journey, and was able to take like some time, like sabbatical like time, and really think. And Close, they reached out to me. They got wind of this, and they were like, we want you to come back full time on partnerships. And it was like getting a call from home. They're like, we would love to, like, let's just continue.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the product. I think
Yep.
I know I had heard about Close before you and I first did, and the way that it really came across my desk is a very close colleague of mine said, "Have you seen this product? I've never used anything like this." And he was talking about how his team had recently transitioned to Close from another tool, and just how it had improved his process and his ability to prospect. He just felt like he had a lot more time back, frankly. But maybe give us, your pitch on the product itself, and why should people consider looking into it as opposed to, all the other mini CRMs that are out there.
So Close is built for salespeople by salespeople. Close started as a sales agency doing sales for other startups, and our founders realized that there was not a good tool built for salespeople only. And we didn't even claim ourselves to be a CRM in the beginning. It was like a sales engagement tool, something like that. And then they ultimately realized, like, we got to call ourselves a CRM. Like, this is kind of what it is. So a couple of things we fundamentally understood is there's no good native calling platforms, like no CRMs for sales that have native calling that make that easy. So that was the first thing. And emailing, right? You're going back to your inbox or jumping around to different windows. And this is like 2013, 2014, where no one has any of this collated into one platform. So the ability to two-way sync your email and then send text messages from that platform if that serves your sales process. And so we put that together, put it in one native package. And we, throughout the years, a decade later, have really kept our focus on, let's make this sales jobs person easy, right? Like, their job is not to go in and figure out how to use tech. The tech should be so easy to use that it just allows them to do their job really, really well, which is, again, people, relationships, communication. That should be easy for them. So we stayed in that lane, have all the communication tools in one platform, and we're just continuing to clean up our UI, making it way easier, making sure we're improving all those communication tools, adding additional tools to the mix, building integrations that are valuable to our customers. And then overall, but still staying focused in that lane. We're built for salespeople to do their jobs really, really well. And really what I call it's just a no bullshit CRM.
Yeah. Awesome. So what, is there like a sweet spot in terms of company size? It sounds like it's, tends to be smaller firms, startups, small businesses that benefit from it. Are there any large teams that are using Close that are finding success with it?
We do have some large teams. We typically don't catch them top of funnel. That's why we've been great. Startups and SMBs, they come in, they're small, they grow with us. Their sales teams, their sales managers over there are so damn stubborn about using Close that even when they grow to a point where Salesforce like comes into the conversation naturally, right? They're like, no, like, we are not giving up this tool. Our sales team loves it. If we move here, we're going to lose productivity from our sales reps, and they're going to be pissed about it. And so absolutely, we have some mid-market flirting with, enterprise companies that have grown with us from a very, very small scale. One of our biggest customers started with like under 10 people, and now they're our biggest customer. They're huge. And they support a sales team of about 250 people using Close, and they loved the product.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. It seems like that is the growth model for CRMs, right? If you grow with the business, you get really sticky in there. Users love it, and just becomes a core part of how that business operates is like a core platform for our company. We're not going to obviously replace it if so many people have used it and it's been a significant part of our growth curve. So it seems like a great model. I'm really curious about, nerding out here a little bit on like the integrations, because I know a big part of being a great CRM product is how do you play nicely with other systems so that if I'm a startup and I'm already using, some different tooling, how do I plug those into Close to create a, again, standardized process and have all the data live in one place and be a single source of truth for my company? Talk to us a little bit about the integration strategy for Close and how that works for a customer. I wanted to share a tool that I started using recently. And if you're doing any prospecting or lead sourcing from LinkedIn, it's definitely worth checking out. The tool is called Surf, and it's spelled SURFE. It's a Chrome extension that allows you to add contacts to your CRM directly from LinkedIn. I use it to add contacts quickly, follow my deals, keep track of my notes, and it's actually saved me a bunch of time. The data is always 100% accurate because I don't have to copy and paste each detail from each contact over to my CRM. Instead, Surf does it all for me automatically with just one click. Now, the folks over at Surf have been kind enough to put together a promo offer for fans of SSP. You can go to the link in the show notes and use the promo code JWSURF with an E 5 for a 5% discount on your first year. Check out the link in the show notes and go check them out.
There's some no-brainer integrations that you have to put together with those bigger platforms, which we've done. Now, since our top of funnel is mainly startups and SMBs, a lot of those types of companies are very open to strong recommendations and high quality integrations that you've built or other teams have built. And so we have the luxury of pitching those. And I call that sort of the indie stack, right? Where you're taking these tools that are smaller teams, really high quality products. Just because it's a big logo that has put together the product for a specific type of function doesn't mean that it's going to be high quality and perform how it should. You're just buying the brand trust. When there are all these other smaller startups who have awesome engineers, have really probably come from one of these big companies to build this product because they saw the gap in how poorly the product was built at their past company. So they're like, let's fill that gap and let's provide a much higher quality solution. And so you get, with like an indie type of tool, you get a higher quality piece of tech, you get a smaller team that still really cares about high quality customer support, customer onboarding. So you get more hand holding, especially, and that's important for startups and SMBs where, they don't have all the time in the world. They don't have project managers specifically dedicated to implementing tech, right? Someone's got to come in and do a lot of that heavy lifting for them and make them feel comfortable. And then when you have a really tight integration with something like a Close, and you start to pull in, 4 or 5 of those indie tools, and they all serve a purpose together, it creates for a very powerful customer experience. And then it also opens up these really interesting partnership plays with content, education to our customer base, their customer base, thought leadership there. And it's a bit more fun and exciting to work with those companies because they're hungry. And they're willing to go above and beyond to serve your customers really well. And they're, like I said, going to provide better tech.
I think it's really interesting. Having been at a few startups myself, one of the things I know can move the needle in an early SaaS company is leveraging the vendors that you work with. As crazy as it sounds, and I tell this to people, and I always get raised eyebrows because people are like, well, how would I use my vendors in a startup? Well, look, it's a partnership, right? If I'm signing up with Close for a CRM, I'm an early startup founder. And then I, pair on 3, 4, 5 other partner tools that integrate well. And now I've got all of those people in my sort of sphere of influence. Surely there's referrals to come from that. There's advice and guidance that's going to be inherent, not only in the technology, but in working with all those different teams. Pick up a bunch of, wisdom bites, right? That are going to guide the strategy, the operation of my business. And that's why I would say, for a startup out there, you probably don't want to go and just get married to one big, fat tool, right? That's maybe really expensive, and you're working with one point of contact at the big guy. It's your account manager. It's a person that's incentivized to sell you more usage of that product and not necessarily guide you as a founder or an operator in a business. They're there to make sure you renew at the end of the year, or add, seat licenses to it. And they probably aren't going to put you into that kind of ecosystem. I think the whole concept of indie stack is very, very interesting, and something that in some of the startups that I've worked on early stage, I wish we would have thought through. Hey, if we just were, I'm purposely not naming names here, but you know who I'm talking about. There's one big CRM player out there that a lot of the startups tend to gravitate to, but to that company, these startups are just a number. It's just, or, batch of seats, and they're not creating an ecosystem for you and your business to really thrive. They're not opening and expanding your network to more resources, more ideas, more tools that can then integrate. They're just making it harder to actually grow. So I'm being careful here. You could say, but that's why I think this whole indie stack is just so interesting. I really think that it opens up a new resource that hasn't been available to a lot of startup founders up to this point, where you're now building something custom, but you're doing it in a way that is also, creating more resource for your business.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to like those larger CRMs, a lot of the times you're buying for the startup price, right? You're like, whoa, that's a really nice discount. Like we can really get in the door at this, and keep our budget low on a CRM. Now, there's caveats, right? Where you might have to hire an implementation expert and pay them to set this up. You're like a month in, you're like, this is over my head. I wasn't onboarded properly. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't have time for it. And so you're like, I'm going to have to hire an expert. It's expensive. Agencies are expensive. We've been very focused on it should be easy. Anybody should be able to set it up. You should just be able to start and not fumble forever, right? And then you pull those other smaller tools that complement and fill in knowledge gaps or product gaps where we can't fill. And then they come in, they help you, right? They're the experts. They're the ones who help you execute versus having to hire somebody just simply by paying the subscription fee, which it really works out really well for a lot of our customers. And then on the partnership side, founders will ask me, as they start to grow, what would be your initial approach with partnerships? I would say integrate with other smaller tools, similar size, that complement your tool, and strategize how you can win customers together. There's a lot of different creative ways that you can do that. And you're building this relationship with this person who is thinking about you. And then you maybe pull in a few others that really complement. Now you have a number of conversations going about the stack itself and like what you're headed towards. And now, you have this exponential network of people talking about this, your tool, their tools, the integrations. You have multiple customer bases that you can target. It becomes more fun. Honestly, it becomes fun because you're empowering each other to be successful. You're building a relationship and probably a friendship through the process, and we'll probably have that friendship or relationship with that person long term.
Yeah. Question on behalf of the current closed users out there.
Mm-hmm.
What is what's like a power user insider tip that you might have off the top of your head that maybe a lot of people who are using the tool right now aren't aware of? And I'm throwing a softball at you here, but
our user tip.
Yeah.
That question could be answered in so many ways, whether we're talking about what type of sales process they're doing, right? It's hard to say. I would say if you are using close and you have not mastered using smart views, they're not hard to master. They're dynamic lists that update in real time to keep, who you want to be targeting very, very focused by specific criteria. You should be mastering smart views because that will give you a very, very clear look at the leads that you should be paying attention to on a regular basis or opportunities that haven't had love. There's so many different ways to use smart views to really leverage your ability to stay focused and your ability to just follow up in a graceful way.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Go and dig into smart views if you're a closed user. go check out Smart Views if you haven't already. Sounds like there's absolutely some, efficiency gains to be had by digging into that feature a little bit more.
Now, I want to give one more sales tip that's not just exclusive to close, which a lot of folks don't do, is video messaging in their sales outreach or their sales follow-up. So Loom is the big player in the game, right? But we also have an integration with a company called SendSpark, and they're a sales-focused video messaging tool, and you can do this at scale. I get cold emails every single day, and I'm like, how do these folks not know that I work for a sales CRM? And if they really want to level up, like, it needs to be interesting or unique, right? I'm simply going to archive a long sales email. I'm going to skim it, make sure there's no real legitimate call to action, and I'm going to swipe it because I just simply don't have the bandwidth. Now, if you send me an email and I see that you sent me a video and I see my LinkedIn profile and the background of that video, I'm like, that person took some time to actually put this together. I'm going to at least give them the respect of their effort to watch this and see what they say. And I will tell you this, in the past month, I've had a single video message in a cold sales outreach. Not a single one.
Wow.
And it's happened a few times, but it almost never happens. And it's so underleveraged and underutilized. So use video messaging. It's a powerful tactic for outbound, but also following up, right? Where answering technical questions, maybe guiding them through the trial to set things up, whatever it might be. It's a tool that's not leveraged enough.
That's okay. That is good. Any other tips on sending a great video message to make it interesting, to make it jump out? I guess it doesn't really need to jump out, because if it's the only video message you get in a month, it's going to inherently jump out.
I think sales reps tend to try too hard and overcomplicate what they're going to say.
Yeah.
I think you, as a salesperson, just dig deep and just be who you are and speak your natural language, just like you would to your friend, but in a business context, right? Like, just genuinely be who you are. And I think a lot of salespeople forget that. Just turn on the camera, say what you need to say. Don't feel like you need to be ultra formal. Just communicate what you need to say.
That's great advice. General, but especially in regards to prospecting and video prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that we can look out for on Close's roadmap that we can look forward to?
We are in the beginning phases. I mean, everybody's pushing AI, right? Like, it's 100 miles an hour, but some of these tools and features get pushed so fast. I think there's value that's being lost in shipping it too quickly. Our team is speccing how we will approach AI and putting it on the roadmap. And based on some of the early specs that I got that I can't disclose yet, I think a lot of folks that either close users or will become close users should be really excited about some of the AI features that we will implement within the platform. They're going to be very thoughtful and really high value.
That's cool to hear. Yeah, I think the world is changing really quickly on the AI front, and I'm not surprised that that's cooking right now for your team.
Yep. We want to empower salespeople with AI, we don't want them to fear it.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, James, thanks so much for coming on. How can my listeners get in touch with you or learn more about Close, or, find your content out there?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me, James Urie, Urie. I'll push value first content on there from time to time. We've got a couple of other content projects that we're working on that I'll be pitching. If there's any questions on, like, hey, I want to get started in close specific questions, partnership questions, james@close.com. Feel free to ping me. May take me a couple of days to get back to you, but I promise you I will.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing your story, all kinds of great insights around the indie stack. And of course, that hidden tip, which is get those video prospecting notes out there.
Yep, absolutely. You should do it.
All right. Thank you.